Welcome back to episode 2 of Rein in Your Herd. Today we are talking about creating a brand for your business. Have you ever wanted to start a business and you didn't know where to get started, or maybe you have a business and it's not easily recognized across all your platforms? Having a brand strategy for your business is crucial. Before starting your website, your social media platforms, or even before creating your own packaging for your products or even your services. In order to create a brand strategy, you will need to know your target audience, your brand's mission. Your visual design will work in tandem with these elements. I know even Laura has a freebie or on figuring out how to or figuring out your ideal client. If Laura, you want to talk a little bit about that freebie.
Yeah, so there's been a great conversation going on um, in a Facebook post that I'm following, and it really talks about how you want to speak to um, the emotional side of that ideal client, and when you define like the emotional benefit that you can have for them. So that's what that freebie kind of tries to help you do, is identify that person, and then in the last couple sections you really talk about how you can help them and the benefits you can have for them, and that's the key part that you really want to hone in on. And we're going to put that freebie in our link tree on our Instagram page, so if you need some help identifying your ideal client, you can hop over there and download it.
Sounds great. So a lot of times when people think about the brand, they automatically think, oh, it's your logo. But it's way more than your logo. Your brand is your identity. It could be like either your story or why you started your business. It could be a lot of reasons. It'll show your personality. It's going to show either your colors and your style, like if you have a certain font style. It's just something that's going to be super easy to recognize across all the different types of platforms. So like if you're on, say, YouTube, and you have a certain border around all of your videos and you have your logo on there and just the way you've typed out your font or whatever, and somebody sees it on the side of the search bar, they're going to automatically know it's you because you're using that same consistent style, and they don't even have to check to see what that account name is underneath the title of that video because they see in the thumbnail that you use all the similar aspects that you always use in your brand. So why is having this brand important? It's your first impression. So you're creating an experience every time one of your potential clients or customers is landing on any of your platforms. You're kind of explaining why you started this. So even like when you go to Starbucks, say, the reason their drinks are so expensive is like as soon as you walk through the door, you're creating that whole experience. You know your drink is going to be really good. They usually sometimes even put your name on your cup. I know sometimes for like weddings or birthdays, they do the little extra mile and do something special with your drink. It's just that whole experience when you walk in there. I mean, I know I got addicted when I was living in Washington, and I think I was going almost, I don't know, a couple times a week just because I wanted that experience going to Starbucks, even though there's plenty of other coffee shops. And I don't even drink coffee, I drink tea, but
Well,
there's
I'm
another.
guilty of going yesterday, so I can't judge you.
Yeah, it's gotten really bad, especially since I've been back in Georgia and they're like everywhere. In Germany, there's only one and it's on base, but
So you need a taste of home.
yeah, exactly. So it's also your brand is also important because it shows your values of your business, and of course like your aesthetic and your communication style. So like I know there used to be this, or like I know this is going to be sound silly, but there's this thing called a squatty potty, and their branding is so
Used to
funny.
be. It's still in my bathroom.
Well, and it's so their branding is so much fun. They have that unicorn. I guess what is he like? I think he's pooping rainbows or something. But it's just, and they have this funny guy on there, and just the way they talk about everything, it just goes along with their whole brand. So it, it definitely pops out at you, and every time it's on Facebook, like I don't know why their advertisements still pop up on mine, even though I've gotten the product, but it's definitely their aesthetic and their communication style.
Number
Uh,
one perk of working from home.
yeah. Exactly. And if you're staying consistent, across all the platforms on social media or your website or any of the things online, you can also be recognized in person. So maybe you have your show drapers show drapes in the same colors, or either your business cards, or maybe you're at clinics, something that will still show that you're easily recognized. So I went to a conference and I kind of wore even like my business colors. Like I kind of felt silly doing that, but it was easy recognizable, and like they knew what business I was running because had all that similar colors online. So it was just something different.
Okay.
So, because you don't like, if somebody is going on your website and you're using this type of font or these types of colors, but then jump over to um, social media and you're not using that similar style, it's just confusing and really hard to figure out if you're running the same type of business between the website and maybe your social platforms. And the brand helps you differentiate from your competitors. You maybe you're doing the same thing, but you might have a different type of story of why you got going on that, or what you're trying to help. Maybe you are trying to help a nonprofit business, or every time they purchase something, it goes towards helping charity or something, and you want them to understand that. So share that through your brand. Because some brands have elevated their brand identities. Like I was saying, Starbucks, there's Apple. I mean, Apple doesn't do like any advertisement online, but who Apple is and their brand easily. And then Levi's, everybody knows what Levi jeans are. These brand stars exceed because they know who they are and why they exist, and they use every aspect of their branding to make sure we know it too. So we're going to share a little bit about our brand stories and how our businesses got started with our branding. When I first got started with my first, or I guess my business now, is I called it Dream Virtual Assistant, because I knew my ideal clients were going to be business owners or small business owners, and I knew that they were busy trying to focus on the next steps for the business, but they couldn't get to get the time to work on any of their social media platforms, or anything that needed to be done online, like email, blogging, anything of that. They just didn't have time for it, but they knew the steps they needed to take. So I wanted to target that audience, and I kind of just went and I did some research on colors and so on. Like I used Pinterest and kind of what the blues and the greens use. Like I went all dived into this big time. Um, I was trying to save a little bit of money with my logo, and I just created it myself. And I figured once I really got the audience and the different types of clients, that I would go on and put a little more effort into my logo. But I stayed consistent with the types of fonts I used, the types of communication style I used. And then just a couple months ago, I decided to rebrand, and I went from Dream Virtual Assistant to Make It Rain. Because when I initially started, I thought I wasn't going to be able to have enough clients that were in the equine industry, but that's about 90% of my clients are all equine lovers or equestrian businesses. And so I was like, well, I need to have a business name that's more related to the type of customers I have. And I wanted to have something clever and something that kind of went along with what I was doing. So I decided to rebrand to Make It Rain. And so now I say, let's make it rain with success with your business. So that's kind of where I've gone with my business. What about yours, Laura?
So when I started my business, I knew I really wanted to make it around horses. I threw out business names for probably 2 weeks trying to figure it out. And then I was sitting on the couch with my husband, just badgering him with business names, and he was looking at me like he wanted to punt me out the window. But finally I started throwing around I went to wild spirit, and then I went to wild horse, and then all of a sudden the horse things just started flowing really easily for me, and I landed on unbridled. And then unbridled marketing was already taken, and unbridled content was already taken, so I had to become unbridled content marketing, which is the longest URL on the face of the earth. But all of a sudden, when I went to the kind of the horse world, it just flowed easily for me. Like the ideas came easily for me, the writing came easily for me, and I kind of realized like, oh, this is somewhere where I love to be. So the words and that kind of part of the brand is very easy for me, the messaging and the tone, but came to the visual stuff, I knew nothing about it. And I was really lucky to find a gal who does branding, who had just went independent with her business, and she needed someone to work on her content, and I needed someone to work on my visuals. So we traded services for a couple months and got each other going, which I'm so grateful for, because I didn't know, I was like, I like purple. She was like, well, that might not be a very good reason to use it in your brand.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. I knew nothing about color psychology. I knew nothing about anything. And, with the fonts, she was explaining, how you really want to use a Google font, because if you use a fancy font on your website, it might not resonate on everybody's browser the same, so it could end up looking really bad on other computers, even though it looks okay on yours. I didn't know anything about any of this. And so that's a good tip for you guys if you're creating your own brand, is stick to those Google fonts, because you're going to be safe with them rendering everywhere on PDFs and on digital spaces, even if people don't have that font on their computer. But yeah, so she took, I was basically, I like horses and I want to write for people. And she took that and created my colors, which I would have never in the world picked the colors. Like, my colors are very farmhouse and earthy, dark red, dark brown, kind of a beige and a dark tan. And I never in the world would have picked that on my own, but I really, really, really love my brand and how she put it together. So that was, it was like this complete outside force came in and said, this is what you need, and that's what I needed in that moment. She took a photo of DT, my first horse, and made my logo out of him, so that was pretty special for me. And she kind of set it all up for me, but now that I've seen it done, I realize how important it is, as April said, to have that consistency. I only use my brand colors on my graphics and in my designs. I only use my brand fonts. And April's talking about how she dresses in her brand colors, and I'm looking at my profile pictures, realize, oh, guess what? I'm wearing purple because everything I own is purple. So I need to go to Costco and buy a pack of dark red t-shirts, basically. But the never-ending to-do list. But yeah, I was really, really lucky to have that outside help and trade with her, because I think I would have done it really, I was like, I really like sunflowers, and she was like, I don't care that you like sunflowers because they don't go with your brand. Okay, thank you. So I definitely would have made all the mistakes had I not had her help. But if you are creating your own brand, it doesn't matter if you like purple and sunflowers. Pay attention to what's going to make you look professional and make you look good.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah. When you were talking about, picking the name, because initially when I just picked Dream Virtual Assistant, I went through some name generator, and I was like, I just need to get started. If I spend
I spent so much time on the dang name generators.
I was like, if I spend way too much time on this, I'm never gonna get started, because I needed to get going. I knew that would probably hold me up. So that's why I went off with Dream Virtual Assistant, and then I was like, okay, well, I kind of do a little more than just virtual assisting. And so I thought it was kind of holding me back a little bit too. And I was spending months just trying to figure out a new name. I know I came to you, Laura, too. I was like, what do you think of these names?
Yeah.
And I was like, and then when I finally saw some things, and I was like, oh my God, what about Make It Rain? That song, but Make It Rain with horse. I was so excited when I figured out that name. I still just love it. And that's what I'm really excited about.
As soon as you found the one that was for you, wasn't it just oh yes, that's the one? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like picking out your wedding dress or your ring. I think it was whole same feeling. But yeah, and that was a great tip about the Google fonts. I've worked with Google all the time, and just feels like I wouldn't even think about doing that with Google fonts and making sure that it can be easily used across all the platforms.
Yeah, so I have a fancy font that is not a Google font. And so if I'm, creating my own graphics where I know it's only going to show up in an image, or I know I can make the PDFs so that it's like a JPEG style instead of a text style, so it renders on everyone's properly. So I have a pretty fancy font that I use, but you don't see that on any of the text on my website because it wouldn't render properly. I had no idea about that. I was so glad she explained that to me.
Yeah. I like that tip. I need to know that tip now. So, I think most of mine are Google fonts now that I think about it, but for sure need to check it out. So now that we've kind of shared our brand stories, I wanted to just share a couple other examples. I know there's a book out there too. I think it's called Story Brands, and it kind of helps explain, how to create the story behind your brand, especially if you have, maybe you're selling products and you have like this vegan or pet friendly or whatever product you have, but why did you go that extra mile to make sure that was eco-friendly? And we just want to know your story behind that brand. And then a lot of times you'll see now people have like branding photo shoots. So they're either have like what they're wearing as their colors, or what they're doing behind, like working with their laptops, or maybe they're at the barn working, or just certain fun things. Like I know even Horse Iron, I believe that's the name, like their blankets, they have some really cute videos with the horses in the warehouse picking out the blankets and trying them on. So that's awesome. And then I know we all love the Smart Pack videos where they have if humans were horse videos, especially the farrier one is just the best one, where the human is like picking up her feet for another person and keeps stomping down her foot, which would be her hoof. And it's just really funny because it's so true. And yes. Then another funny one is Lainey Ashker. She's a really well-known eventer, and she's got her hashtag down, like hashtag LAE for her name. And I know at one of the Kentucky 3-day events, she had like toast out, and like they punched her face onto each piece of toast. So that was a branding thing. And she also has like every week she puts up a different type of style for all her jump sets and everything. So it's kind of cool to see how she's engaged her audience and created the brand around her. So that's pretty exciting. So now that we've both talked about branding and such, how do you get started? So I've created a free template. It's a brand for your branding board, and it kind of walks through how to pick your colors, or how you're going to create your brand board. You're going to have your colors on there. You're going to have your logo, your fonts, pretty much everything aesthetically appeasing that goes with your branding. I also kind of have a blog post that goes along with this, but we will have the brand board ready for y'all. And we'll have that as well on the link tree. So it'll be a great option that way.
Fantastic. Yeah, someday we're going to have a website for you guys, but for now, as we're doing this project alongside our businesses, we're kind of making Linktree work as our pseudo website for now. So Instagram is where you'll want to be for that.
Yeah. Eventually we'll have that website out, but it'll take a little more effort and whatnot. But everyone I'm sure understands little side hustles, so we're trying to work on it all.
Yes.
All right, so make sure you go and use that branding board, or if you created your own brand and you've done it in the past, go ahead and tag us on Instagram. We'd love to see your brand and share it with others.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with.